They're playing with their friends and they're head to head, and it crawls across very quickly. That's how lice is spread. And then the moms get it because they're tucking the kids in bed and reading the story, and lo and behold, they get it. And then the moms give it to the dad. it's it's like the gift that keeps giving. I'm excited to talk about my story. I think it's very unique, and you'll probably never hear a story like this one. That's for sure.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Measuring Post. I've got a very unique story today, one that I wasn't even really sure if this would fit with the audience, but after learning more and more about this very visionary woman, it seemed like a really good fit. And I'm going to call this episode Purpose from Chaos, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But with me today is the visionary founder of My Hair Helpers, which is Southern California's top-rated head hair company. I'll let her explain what that is in all a bit, but she's also an advocate for family wellness. She's a faith-fueled entrepreneur, and she is a business owner now. And I don't think it had started. This was never maybe an original dream for her, but it became her business, her passion, and something that we're going to talk about today. So with that in mind, please welcome Miss Amy Chinian to The Measuring Post. How are you, Amy?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about my story. I think it's very unique, and you'll probably never hear a story like this one. That's for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, I'd never had heard a story about it, so I didn't really know how to even categorize this at first, because this particular podcast is like being the best version of yourself, but usually it doesn't start like more on a business side of things. But obviously, you didn't start with the business in mind. This was an after byproduct of the circumstances. So before we get into all of that, how many children do you have?
Sure. So I've been married 35 years. I have 5 children, and they're all 2 years apart. And I was living in Playa del Rey, and I was a housewife. My husband had a booming business, a car company. He sold aftermarket products to car dealers. So he's also an entrepreneur. And I was blessed to be able to stay home with my kids the first 15 years of their lives. Um, and we had an episode of head lice. And I did not grow up with head lice. I really honestly didn't even know what it was. I mean, there's some people that tell me, "Oh yeah, we had regular checks," and they knew about head lice. I'd heard the word, but I really didn't know how these creatures operated. So I found myself pregnant with my last child. I was 9 months pregnant, ready to pop, and my head was itching, like this fierce itch. I said, "What the heck's going on here?" My head is so itchy. So my girlfriend was visiting. She looked at my hair. She said, "Well, you've got head lice." I said, "What?" It just was so shocking. You're so shocked. And especially when you find out this is a bug that lives in your hair. Like it's like third world stuff. Okay. I'm pregnant. I've got head lice, and I did not know what to do. And I was so grossed out and scared. And all my kids had it, all 4 of them, except the one in my tummy. So I asked my friend, "What do I do?" And she'd had lice before. She grew up with lice. She goes, "Oh, it's no big deal. You just go to the store and you buy these over the counter products." Okay. So that's what I did. I went to the store. I bought these products that they sell everybody. I did them on my kids, and lo and behold, we still had lice. I said, "What is going on here?" I said, "I'm not going to the hospital and having a baby with head lice in my hair." So I got a little creative. I looked up we didn't even have internet then. I looked in the yellow pages, and I found the only lice picker in the whole entire city. And she came to the house, and I was so grateful. She had just opened her company. She didn't even have a salon. She just came home to home, and she helped me with the problem. She just combed it all out, checked everybody. And then it was a pretty penny. I'm not going to lie to you. It was like $1,500 2 times. But, when you're in that situation, you just want it resolved. You don't really think about, "Oh my gosh, this is expensive," because you've tried everything. you've tried everything and nothing works. So I was super grateful that there was somebody that knew what to do. Okay. And so years went by. And I didn't really think about lice anymore. And, she solved the problem and I went about my business.
Yeah, and there's definitely and a lot of people are not aware about lice if you've never had it. We had it one time when I was a really little kid, so I don't remember how we dealt with it. My parents dealt with it, but
Yeah.
they consume your whole house and they get in everything, and they can even be found in like bedding and clothing and stuff, correct?
Incorrect.
So they
So
don't. So not like bed bugs.
nothing. And that's the beauty of lice. So most people think like you do. Okay, because the information out there, even on the CDC website, is that you have to bag everything, you have to, blow your house up, fumigate. No, 99% of lice is passed head to head. They have to live on the blood on your scalp. They are not going to survive off your head, and the eggs will not hatch off your head because they need the warmth of the scalp. So tons of misinformation. And it's a pretty easy fix with the right products and the right comb, which I have in my salons, and online you can buy my products. But you have to know what you're dealing with and use the right products. So um
That,
what
that's
happened
good to know. I was completely unaware. I thought they were also able to be like on inanimate objects. Are they? Is it something that can go from a human to like a pet, like a cat or a dog, or do they prefer human only?
No, the wrong body temperature. Dogs and cats have a different body temperature. Lice are only exclusive to humans. Anybody can get lice. Everybody gets lice. It doesn't matter if your hair is clean or dirty, or it doesn't matter where you live. It affects everybody. It's just about being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Head to head contact. 99% of lice is passed through head to head contact. So most of the children get it from school. Okay, they're playing with their friends and they're head to head, and it crawls across very quickly. That's how lice is spread. And then the moms get it because they're tucking the kids in bed and reading the story, and lo and behold, they get it. And then the moms give it to the dad. it's it's like the gift that keeps giving. How's that?
Yeah, I like that. That's it's not my favorite gift, that's for sure. But
Yep, I know.
so what would be the equivalent? Like, what are they most closely related to that maybe would make sense for somebody that has no idea about lice? Are they like mites or fleas or ticks, or are they
Wow.
completely separate, their own sort of
Well,
monster?
I would say that there are different types of lice. Okay. I've had people call me and say, please come out. I've got head lice. And it turns out they have bird lice or
Oof.
chicken lice, or, from different animals have different types of lice. Okay. But they can't stay in a human hair. But we're always surprised, when we get to a house and they have, chicken lice because they have chickens, or they have a bird's nest outside their bedroom window. So I would say there's different types of lice. There's body lice, which is called scabies, but head lice is humans. Okay. It's only for humans. That's why we call it head lice. They stick in your hair.
I think I would much rather have head lice than chicken lice. That one just sounds worse to me for some reason. I don't
I
know
know.
why, but I
I
don't want
know.
the
Right.
animal version of it.
Yeah. It's all kind of disgusting.
Yeah, and you know what I love about your story though is that obviously this is an uncomfortable situation. Nobody wants to have lice or talk about how they had lice because you're
Yeah.
right, it doesn't matter if you're clean or dirty, doesn't matter where you're at, but it makes you it's like a dirty feeling. Like I don't want to have the same way I would feel if all of a sudden I had bed bugs. It's like that's gross. You don't really want to talk about it. But I love how you took this sort of uncomfortable topic and built a whole life and business around this because when the recession in 2007 hit, you guys had financial struggles. Your husband's business started to go under. And then you sort of rose from the ashes and built this business that was able to help you take care of your five children. So tell us a little bit about how this went from just learning about it to like, you know what, maybe I'm going to be the authority in this space.
Well, it was pretty nuts. I mean, we always had a very comfortable life, and we had our kids in private school. I got to stay home and I was very involved in the school, volunteering for everything and, just minding my own business. And then during the recession, the car dealers went out of business and those were my husband's customers. So he looked at me one day and I knew things were getting kind of, rough. And he said, "We have no money." And he said to me, "Not only do we have no money, we owe $1 million." And I said, "What? What do you do with that?" And we could not pay. Uh, we were renting a beautiful house. We couldn't pay our rent. We couldn't. He lost the building. We had a beautiful building in Venice. I mean, we just started losing everything right and left, and everything was going down. And I had started helping at the school and I started learning about lice and reading. I read a book called Lice Advice by Katie Shepherd. She's now my friend. And I just had a book. That's all I had in videos and the strong desire to support my family. So as everything's going down, I had started just kind of toying with this. And then literally we lost everything. Everything I owned in 20 years of marriage fit in one closet. Like you just hold your hands up, you're like, okay, that's it. At least I'm healthy. My kids are healthy. Have a good marriage. Uh, it's not the worst thing in the world, losing all your money. It's not fun. It was, scary, but when you know Jesus as your savior, you're scared, but you're trusting. You're trusting that God has a plan, and I don't know what it is. I always thought his plan was going to be different. I said, surely he's not going to allow my husband's life work. It was his life's work to crumble. But it did. It completely crumbled. He had been at the top of the car business. Everybody knew him. He was very successful. He developed his own line of products. It was literally poof. It was all gone. And I kept asking him, can't you just go back to the car business? Can't you just go back and reinvent yourself? And he looked at me and he said, there's nothing to go back to. Imagine being at the top and you run a huge company. And I think he even went and became a car salesman. And it was rough. And then he was, he was a driver for a while. It was really hard. It was harder probably for him than for me because I had found something that I could do. So I bought a red picnic basket for $1 and I put products in it. He would buy products online and we'd try them and it was all word of mouth. So I'd carry this red picnic basket to family, friends. Remember, we had no money. So I had no marketing. I had no website, no nothing, like this, like zero. And so it was all word of mouth and my faith in that God was going to take care of us. And so we ended up moving to Calabasas. Our son got a scholarship to a college prep high school. And so we said, well, we have nothing to lose. So it was about an hour from Playa del Rey. We moved up to Calabasas it was about 600 square feet, all of us. And we were stuffed in this tiny apartment and my husband was trying to reinvent himself and I'd started my business and I hired a person to help me in the area where I just moved from. So I had one person working for me and she was very loyal, very kind person. And I started just little by little, word of mouth. I had a friend who was a graphic designer, made me a logo, made me like a one-page website. And that was my marketing. So my faith just really carried me through. I knew God had a plan. He had me at this beautiful school with my son, and the people were so nice to me. They made me head of the moms in prayer there. And here I am, I don't have 2 nickels to rub together. And I'm going to the food bank in the back after I drop him off at school. And I said, Lord, you've got a sense of humor. You've got me in this affluent community and I'm the poorest I've ever been. And I just feel so out of place, but yet I don't. I had a peace.
I love that. And there's the popular saying, which is actually taken from a verse in Corinthians. And it's
Hmm.
the modern interpretation is that God only gives you what you can handle. And
Yeah.
the actual biblical version of that's slightly different, but that's the
Mhm.
one people typically know. And there's a lot of truth to that. And I actually got to witness very similar circumstance in '07, '08. My family was in the mortgage industry. My dad had a building, had 20 employees, was booming. Everyone was getting, mortgages galore. It was like he was turning people down because I don't have the bandwidth to take on another loan right now. And then same thing in a matter of 6, 12 months, he went from that massive paycheck and building and clout to absolutely nothing and bankrupted and lost the business, lost the building, as did many people in the finance sector, certainly. And the real estate market completely went from 100 to zero overnight. So the ability, though, to reinvent yourself,
Hmm.
it takes a strong mind and will to be prepared to go through that battle again. But it's really easy to fall into this either a victimhood mentality where it's like, woe is me, life is terrible.
Yeah.
Or the other thing is just like embarrassment. People find it
Yeah.
really embarrassing when they go through a personal struggle, but you forget that so many people go through personal struggles. It's nothing to be ashamed of, and it's outside of your control. It's not
Yeah.
like your husband just decided I don't want to go to work anymore and he was gambling and all every day. This was something an economical situation that was far outside of any one of our individual control, but the ability to find purpose in that chaos is what really strikes me as profound in your circumstance.
Yeah. You know what the funny thing is that my children benefited from seeing the struggle because here they are with a lot of spoiled kids all around them. And, mommy could maybe buy them one pair of shoes for the year, and they had to sleep on the couch. We were in a tiny little place. And they saw the struggle, they saw us push through, and they appreciate so much more now. They appreciate, I don't think they would know and appreciate what they have now had they not gone through that struggle. And don't get me wrong, we were happy. We lived in a place where they had a pool and there was a little trolley car that took them to the shopping center. Like, we're not struggling in a third world country. We're struggling in America. Okay. So there was a struggle and it built character in all of us. I had never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I know I have an adventurous spirit and I know that I'm a mama bear and I'm going to go down swinging, but I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. But I believe that when I saw this niche and it was something I saw that I can do this, that I can do this. And I'm talking to somebody that's listening. Just find one thing and get really good at it. Whether it's pressure washing or whether it's dog walking or whatever it is, find one thing and build on that. And you'll be sought out if you become an expert in one thing. People will seek you out. It's not that complicated, but you have to stay the course and do whatever you're doing with excellence. Research it, be the best. And we're in America, you know, and having your faith in Christ is invaluable because the Lord says, that He's with us. He's with us to the end. And I knew He never left me. My kids, we had a roof over our head. We had food in the refrigerator. Yes, it was, a struggle. Yes, it was, kind of embarrassing at times. I couldn't afford to send my son on a mission trip with his school. So other people paid for it, you know, but that's okay. That's okay. We're good. And he from that school he went to USC on a full scholarship and he has friends for life. So God brought so much good out of it. Um, and I did end up opening my first salon up here in the Thousand Oaks area. I opened a small little room. I was driving by this area in Thousand Oaks, kind of a classic area, and I saw a for rent sign on a tree. And I said, let me just pull in here. And I looked inside the room and it looked very small. I said, oh, I think it's too small. And my husband said, it's just right. And so I'm still in that little cottage. We have the whole cottage now. We rented the whole thing, but that was my first location. And you know, you don't want to go ahead of God. You want to just walk with him. And I'm always asking the Lord, should I do this? Should I do that? And during my hardest times when I didn't understand this bug, I would just cry to God. I'd say, you made this bug. I'd read the scriptures. I'd say, the Holy Spirit says he's the teacher of all things. Teach me about this bug. And so God did. He showed me what kind of products kill it. He showed me what kind of comb takes it out. It's like I was led by the Spirit of God for every decision I've made. You don't want to rush ahead. You want to walk with him. I didn't take partners. My husband's my only partner. So we went on to open 5 more locations. Um, but we didn't rush ahead of God's timing. You have to just listen to the Holy Spirit. And, we do have some SBA loans that have helped us, but taking on partners kind of it caused some problems. Um, so my husband is my partner. He had all that um, education from his entrepreneurial experience. So he runs my whole team for advertising and everything, and I run all the women and the salons. So it's good.
No, I love that. And you said something also that I think is really
Mhm.
worth talking about before we move on any further. You
Yeah,
talked about if you just find that niche, if you just find that one thing that you're passionate about and just
yeah,
get really, really good at that. If any you ever take the time to read like these books, How to Become a Millionaire, Get
yeah,
Rich Yesterday, a lot of
yeah,
those books will tell you this same thing. And what they say is the guys that you don't suspect that are worth millions of dollars, they're
yeah,
not the guys that created the next big product. They didn't invent AI or the social media platforms.
yeah,
They're the people that stuck with their job and just got really good and just never quit. And they just went for years and years and years and were consistent with their passion. They followed the trends, they grew it. They became that expert in whatever field that is, whether it's
yeah,
dog walking or head lice or being a car
yeah,
salesman, and they just never quit. And that's what you really have to do. It doesn't mean your passion won't change. It doesn't mean you might not adapt or change over time. But if you get really good at something and keep going forward, you will find your purpose. And I wholeheartedly believe the same thing, that God will lead you to where you're supposed to be. But you do have to keep your eyes open, and you have to be willing to put in the work and then follow the cues that you're given. So I really, really like that. And I agree also. I've owned several businesses. It is tough to have like an outside partner come in, especially when you're really looking for, financing, you need funding. So let me bring in a
yeah.
partner, let me start a business, but then you sort of lose your control and you lose like maybe
And you,
the
and you
focus of what
lose
it was meant to be.
50%. You lose 50%.
Well, yeah, you certainly lose the money
Yep.
portion of it as well, but yeah, it's always nice if you can do it internally. That's certainly the way to go, but you
Yeah.
know, depends on the circumstances always. So you do have 6 locations now, correct? 5 or
I
6.
I have 6 locations and I have mobile service all the way from Santa Barbara to San Diego. So
So all in California base. Is there any
all in
plans to expand
California.
out of California?
I would love that in God's timing when he shows me. Um, it would be wonderful. It would be wonderful. Everybody needs help. I started a nonprofit called Lice Free Forever Charity uh, because I saw that there were so many children suffering with lice, and the school nurses didn't know what to do to help them. So I started becoming friends with school nurses, and I would give them a little coupon that says, good for one treatment. And I found that I could change a child's life in 2 hours. It's about the time of a treatment. We could get all that stuff out of their hair. And where there's a child that doesn't have friends because they have bugs in their hair and they're sitting by themselves during lunchtime because nobody will play with them because of bugs. It's so heartbreaking that I said to the Lord, I've got the salons, I've got the women to help. I just need the money to fund it. So I had a very generous customer and she loves what I'm doing. And to this day, she helps me every year with my nonprofit and she'll help me for the whole year. So I just try to get the word out there. If you're suffering with this, let me send you products. Let me help you. Um, you can watch my videos. You can watch, yeah, my YouTube and my social media, and you can see what we're doing. Because clearly the over-the-counter products, they don't work. And we want to help these babies. I can change someone's life in 2 hours, and they can go home and have their childhood back. I mean, it's just really sad.
And it is, and kids at that school age level can be very mean and bully and pick on. And it's really hard to feel ostracized when you're a little kid and feel like, well, I didn't, why am I not worthy to have friends? And again, it's looking back from an adult perspective down. I understand, like, if my best friend had lice, I'd be like, go away until you get it figured out. But a
Yeah.
little kid doesn't have that sort of perspective, and they're going to think like there's something wrong with me. When no, nothing's wrong with you. You're just got something that needs to be addressed, unfortunately. But I love that you're giving back to with that thought in mind and helping the school age kids because, again, a lot of parents do struggle and they might not have the information. And like, I would never, without having met you, know that there's a special comb that can help. Like, I would just shave my head. Would that work? Maybe. I doubt it. Probably not. I'm
Well,
sure
but
you get that.
it would help. They'd still hang on for dear life,
Yeah.
but it would help. Yeah.
So, without giving me too much of your proprietary information, what's the deal with the fancy comb that kills lice? How does that work?
Sure. So there's a lot of combs out there. This particular comb is a spiral tooth comb, and the teeth are very long, and the spiral teeth drags the eggs out, and the long comb, it will pull the bugs out. So this is the comb. It's called my lice eliminator comb. This is the comb I use in all of my salons, and I use that in conjunction with the lice removal oil that I developed. It's just a pure dimethicone oil, but it works amazing to suffocate the bugs. And then I have an enzyme that loosens the glue of the eggs. So I'll layer them on the hair, and then we section the hair and comb it all out. And I think where parents miss it is they'll be putting the over the counter treatments that don't work. They'll kill a bug or two, and they'll send their kids to school. And meanwhile, the kids are still spreading it to all their friends because the parents think it's gone. And it's not a solution. It's really not.
So, did you actually create the design of the comb as well?
I did not. I created some of my products. Some of them I found online with the company I use, and had to try everything. I have to see what works. For a while, I wasn't using oil, and I was leaving bugs behind. And so the minute I started using oil, I discovered, it sucks the bugs up and stops them, and then you just comb them all out. There's some companies that use heat treatment. Okay, the heat treatment is great, but I want to use something parents can do. Not they don't have a hair dryer at home with the suction. You know, when people watch me at my salon, they can see what I'm doing, and it's easy once they see. So it has to be practical. So that's what I like about it.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And I
Yeah.
love that you did the nonprofit too. That's something really great. You guys, by the way, you can find more information and I will link around this video, myhairhelpers.com, if you'd like to learn more or contribute, because obviously running a nonprofit just means you're not taking money from it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't cost money to run. So
Mhm.
what's next on the plane, obviously in God's timing, and, what's the ideal scenario moving forward from here for you and your family? How do you take this to the next level?
So I am always looking at expanding my line of products to other hair problems, which is why I have the name of My Hair Helpers, because it kind of opens up the playing field for other hair problems. I see a lot of dandruff. I see hair loss. I'm not an expert, but I could be. Um, and to expand my line to other things would be great. And also to expand into other states where where they don't have a good company to help people. So I'm not there yet, but it's always in the future thinking about it.
Absolutely. And that actually was good. That led into another question I had is, are your products available for like purchase online where you could ship it to me in Colorado and I could use it with like an instructional video or something?
Oh, absolutely. So my Amazon does really well because, of course, Amazon Prime, you need that. You need them right away. You've got something in your hair and you don't want to wait a week. So I have an Amazon store, My Hair Helpers, and then I have a Shopify and website, www.myhairhelpers.com. All my products are there with videos. You can also email me. My email's on there, and I'm very hands-on. I'm an owner that will be in my salon doing treatments, talking to customers. That's I love that. I love my customers. I have so much fun. And the fact struggle with lice and I tell them my story and how I started my company, gives some inspiration. You feel so isolated when you've got this and you don't want to tell anybody because then you feel embarrassed. So I am writing a book, Everybody Gets Lice. It'll be ready soon. It's what I'm always telling people when I see them. I tell them the kind of places I've been for lice removal, to the biggest reality stars. And then I've been to the scariest places in LA I probably shouldn't have been. But I was, just trying to help people. So everybody gets lice. It's no respecter of persons.
And I love that you're humanizing it. It is. It
Yep.
doesn't matter your make, creed, color, nothing matters. It's just simply a thing that happens to humans. And that's important to realize because there is a level of embarrassment or like shame almost. Like I'm sure if I got it today, I would feel shameful even though knowing better, being old enough to know better, it's still like I'm not telling anyone about this.
I
I'll
know.
deal with it, but I'm not telling anybody.
The
But
people
never
that
live it down.
tell anyone are the ones that get it right back. You don't want to tell the school nurse. You don't want to tell your friends. So your kids
Mm.
get it right back from the same people.
Yeah, really. They give it and they get it right back from the
Yeah.
person they gave it to.
Yeah.
So what's one practical takeaway that you would give to our listeners today if they're going through not only so I want to sort of throw you a curveball because maybe not right lice related, but going through what you and your family went through where you just had a huge loss, financial loss. You lost all your personal belongings, not due to like a fire or something, but just simply out of lack of funding and everything else. So what's one piece of advice from your faith, from your experience that you would share with people if you had one paragraph to sum it up?
That's a good one. Okay. First of all, any job is a good job if it's a job. So don't worry about the kind of job you need to do. Just pick one thing. Like I said, pick one thing and become good at it. And that can parlay. Maybe you'll go work for a company that does something you're interested in and you can learn about how they're doing it and then take the best of that and start your own. But you've got to do something to make ends meet. Um, and so God will open that door. He says he'll never leave you or forsake you, and he'll give you favor with something. And it is kind of scary, but I know that I can trust my Lord. He never let me go hungry. He never let me go begging crumbs at the table. He always took care of me and my family. And it's a tremendous faith builder. And I lived it and I walked through it. And it was a lot of years. Had you told me, oh, you'll be living in this tiny apartment for 5 years, I would have said, oh, wow. But I didn't know. I didn't know. So, he provided the next step and the next step for me. So it is a faith walk, and faith means you don't see what's ahead, but you trust.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love that you took a personal challenge, you built a purposeful brand from that, and then now you're having an impact on the community around you. And again, those things were probably never thought out in your own journey, like, this is what I will do. Like you said, if someone were to tell me this, 10 years ago, oh, in 10 years from now, you're going to own the biggest lice helping company in Southern California, you probably would have told them they're crazy. But again, that's those journeys we go on sometimes unknowingly, and having the faith. And I love how you said that. Faith is not knowing what's ahead, but just trusting that you're going the right direction. So
Yeah.
I couldn't have said that better.
Yeah, that's what faith is, you know. If we knew what was ahead of us and we wouldn't need faith. We just trust God's plan. and now, I've got two of my daughters working with me and my husband, and I have a whole team of women. Um, so every day is an adventure. It's every day's different. Today we're at a big private school. So every day is different. I love sharing my story because I think it helps people. Mine was it was just, I was so taken off guard when it happened, when we lost everything so fast. But look what God did. He opened up a door for my son to go to this beautiful school. And I moved to this beautiful area where I am now because of that. I never would have moved here, but I love it here. So, trusting him through all things. And I thought he was going to answer the prayer a lot different. I thought we were going to be okay. My husband's company was just going through a little rough spot, but it's gone. He's totally out of the car business now. He's in the bug business with me.
And you know what? What a beautiful full circle story there. You know what I mean? At one point, you trusted in his entrepreneurial journey, and that took care of you and your 5 kids with him.
Mm. Yep.
And after that was taken from him, no fault of his own, it was your turn to have an entrepreneurial journey, and now you guys have made that so you're taking care of your 5 kids and yourself. And I love that. I think it's just such a beautiful story, and really one of resilience, but also truly believing in God, and the just the journey of what it takes to get to A to B. It's not always a straight line. Sometimes you go through a couple of loops and a couple of curveballs, and I love that you guys have built this amazing idea for a company that really does get swept under the rug because of shame or embarrassment or whatever. But the
Mhm.
book, Everybody Gets Lice, I mean, it makes perfect sense. So myhairhelpers.com, you can find on social media at myhairhelpers. We'll make sure to link in and around this video. And the nonprofit, obviously, Lice Free Forever Charity, is that connected to your website, or is that a separate website?
It's connected to my website.
Perfect.
Yeah.
myhairhelpers.com. So
Yep.
when I go fully gray, hopefully you can help me there too, but
Oh,
I'm joking.
maybe we'll have something for that.
There you go. By then you'll be ready for me. But
Yep.
yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on the Measuring Post. I think this is a powerful story in finding purpose when you feel lost. So I really thank you for sharing everything you did with us today, Amy.
Thank you. It's been fun. I love talking about my story because, like I said, it's very unique. You'll never hear a story like this one.
No, I love it. And it was, you know what, you're a great storyteller, so it made it fun and entertaining, and that for that I thank you very much. So
Oh,
with
my
that in mind, everybody, Amy Chinian here on the Measuring Post, thank you so much for coming on. And when your book is ready, please let us know. I'd be happy to share that with our community as well and get that out there for you.
Okay, will do. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. Talk to you soon.